weekend. So I'm going to pass the mic to our amazing hosts. So please, everybody, help me give a big welcome to Špela and Damjan.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. I won't waste too much time of yours, and I would just like to say that I'm extremely happy and grateful that I'm standing here. This year we have a lot of interesting talks that we will listen to, among which we'll also hear about novel developments in the clinical trial that has started. And but don't feel obliged to just following the Slido rules and questions. Just find us, talk to us. We're happy to discuss anything the time we're here. And with that, I would just like to say a big thank you to the families who are participating in this research endeavors. It's a very important thing for us researchers to understand the disease, to understand how the disease shows in different time points and how it develops over time. So without your support and your cooperation, I think none of this would actually be able to happen. So I'm extremely grateful to all of you, and of course also to all the researchers and presenters that are going to show their research here. And with that, I would like to give the word to Špela, who will tell you much more and more interesting things than I did. So thank you.
Okay. So, welcome everybody. I can't believe this is now the 4th year we are going together. And I'm sure it will be an incredible, amazing 2 days we will spend together. And I can also tell it will be very, very emotional. And as a mother of a child with CTNNB1 syndrome, I can tell how proud I am, how honored I am, and how incredibly amazing it is that we are seeing each other the 4th year. And it is especially meaningful to be back in Spain. Some of you remember Spain was one of the first places that we come together in Madrid on our first international conference. And also Spain is the place where we will very likely open a new clinical site. And I also want to acknowledge the people who are standing behind this conference. So everything you see today, every email, every brochure, the coffee breaks, there is a team that stands behind this. I want to acknowledge Laura de Beliac. I'm not sure if she's here. She's probably organizing behind. She really stands behind a lot of this organization and also the clinical examinations in our children. I also want to acknowledge Masha Koshorok. She's our new team. She's doing the Baileys with your children. I heard she was amazing. And she's also has been helping with the conference. And of course, Bruno, who somehow manages to solve every IT problems we have, even before we know that they are there. And our Spanish queens, Ana and Esti, again, I'm sure they are helping somewhere the Spanish families. They are responsible for the childcare and also for bringing the clinical examinations in Valdebron Hospital, just really reducing the burden of the exams here. And of course, I also want to thank all of the speakers who traveled all around the world to be here today. Some of you joined for the first time. Some of you were before online and then came here. Thank you, everyone. I also, yeah. And most importantly, I want to thank the families who really took the time to travel all around the world, taking their children to be able to be examined during these Dragonfly exams we do, and also taking the time to listen to the conference. And I want to take another applause for them. So we have a very, very busy conference these 2 days. We will start with a first intros. I will give a short intro on all of the things we achieved in the past year, but also in previous years. And then we have this year today the president of the Cure and Connect, Emily. Our journey has been quite interesting, I would say, but I'm happy that organizations will start working together. And then I have to acknowledge that this conference is being funded by Erdera. And this year, kind of the work is focused on trying to work together also with underrepresented countries. So Noemi will present how we can improve the care of rare diseases in underrepresented countries. And then we will have a panel on beta-catenin experts, including the roundtable. So if you have any questions that you want to know about the protein that is messing with our children, now will be the time. And then again, we will explain more about the phenotype we see in our children, the natural history study. We will also have a doctor from France who will explain the phenotype and the natural history they see in a quite big French cohort. And then the next day will probably be one of the most anticipated sessions, gene therapy. And we will also have a lot of time for questions that you will be able to ask to the researchers, to the doctors. And then it will follow the Centers of Excellence. This is a project that we are really hoping to do in the future, just knowing that rare disease, probably we cannot expect from doctors to know that every doctor will know everything about this disease. So the idea would be to have centers of excellence where there would be responsible doctors who will know a lot about this disease and will be able to take care better for our children. And then we will finish with a small group workshops where you will be divided into different groups and we will think together what more can we do for our children. I also want to invite you to use the Wordly. We really want to make this conference as accessible and close to you as possible. So Wordly is a platform that will allow you to listen via headphones, or you have subtitles about the conference you will be hearing in real time. You can scan the QR code and listen directly. And then I also want to acknowledge why we do these conferences every year. We really do believe that knowledge is power. And we want to acknowledge that this conference belongs to all of us parents. And we want you to ask all of the questions that keep you alive, that keep you awake during the night, to ask about research treatments, to ask about the symptoms you see in your children. Anything you want to know that is in your mind, please do ask. Now really it is the time. And we also want to invite the researchers to be curious, to be challenging. We want to have the difficult questions, to share your insight, because we do believe that only by working together, we can drive the knowledge and data to ultimately help our children. So now I will go forward and giving you a short overview of what has happened in the past year in CTNNB1 Foundation, and also what are our ongoing projects and future plans. So for those of you who haven't followed CTNNB1 Foundation, I just want to give a few overview of when was it established and what was the main accomplishment. So CTNNB1 was established in 2021. And was established with three main missions. One mission was to develop, but also to support treatment solutions that have a good chance to lead to clinics, to our children. But also knowing that the disease was discovered only in 2012, we needed to generate a lot of knowledge to better understand, but also to improve the standard of care, to really know that children are being followed in the same way all around the world. And that is why we have now opened a new project, which is developing clinical practice guidelines together with Cure and Connect. And we hope we will be able to implement it in as many countries as possible. But also to connect researchers and families around the world, because we do believe that the most impactful collaborations happen when people meet face to face. So the main accomplishment in those 5 years were we have fundraised more than 5 million euros. We have obtained first exclusive license from SMRI, and now recently we also received patent, and we were able to submit to go to national countries. We led and organized the whole regulatory process of gene replacement therapy for CTNNB1. And we also amended Slovenian law, so the country was able to give us $1 additional million when we were tight on funding. We received several grants, 2 Erdera from now, so for organizing conference this year and the first year. And also this year we received Spark NS grant. This is a huge nonprofit grant which will allow us to expand mainly to the US, but also they will be able to support us with several advisors. This is our fourth international conference we organize, and now we have more than 150 participants included, which is really, really incredible, just knowing how many people are actually in this community. And also, our first clinical trial was improved, and already 2 patients were dosed. So, what do we do? It's really hard to put all of the things on a paper, because there are so many things we do, so many things we don't even know we do, but just we do it because we had to. So first and most importantly, operation. Running a nonprofit organization is a huge effort and huge amount of time we need to do. We pay our own bills, we run our own accounting, so that also takes some of the time, mainly by my mother. So we need to prepare the budget, we need to pay all of the bills, we need to make sure that we have the funding available to actually do it. And also the gene therapy development, we were heavily involved in leading this effort, coordinating different CROs, organizing the shipment of the vials, handling the contracts and communication, preparing regulatory documents. Of course, we have very good consultants, and we are also working with the CRO to support us in this clinical trial preparation. But we were heavily involved in writing these documents and also taking the responsibility afterwards. And then we are also trying to partner and expand globally with different countries, with expanding clinical trial to different countries, but also trying to find strategic partners to get additional funding. And then the clinical trial, we are right now in a clinical trial phase. So of course, the amount of money that we need to pay has expanded exponentially. It is insane just how much money that costs. So we have to have a clinical trial oversight. Every single adverse event has to come to us, and we have to review it. We have to prepare reports, do the site readiness, hospital and CRO coordination. And then we are also running the Dragonfly Natural History Study. Thanks to Laura, Nina, and of course the PI of the study, Damjan, we are able to handle all by ourselves, which means the scheduling, the emails, different countries preparation, recruitment, consents, and then also the data analysis. And then the funding, making sure that there is enough funding to do that, applying to different grants. Family support, since the clinical trial is right now happening in Slovenia, we are trying to support families as much as we can by helping them with accommodation, anything basically they need, they're able to come here. And also, we take a lot of pleasure to connecting with families when they're newly diagnosed, because we know how hard that is. So basically, if you look at the CTNNB1 Foundation, we operate as a virtual biotech lab where we kind of coordinate everything from the point where SMRI completed in vitro testing and construct design, and organize the whole development of gene therapy from efficacy study, generation of mice, phenotypization, manufacturing, QP release, toxicology, and then also preparation for the clinical trial. So CTNNB1 Foundation started as a very small team. Here are some of our OGs, original gangsters, it's supposed to be the name. So this started as a very, very small and very dedicated team, but has now grown into a much, much bigger team of people who are real experts trying to bring this therapy into the clinic. So we have from operational team, construct development, preclinical, translational experts, regulatory experts, or people who are trying to be experts, and also our clinical team. So they say that it takes a village to raise a child, but one of my closest friends said that to develop a new therapy, It's actually, you need a whole army to do it. And though this is, of course, just a small number of people that contributed to this huge project. So as mentioned, it took us approximately 4.5 years from starting this project to bringing it to the clinical trial. Probably for many pharmaceutical companies, this is a small amount of time, but for us, I know now how to make everything faster, where we lose some time, and how to make it better for our children. But basically, the beginning was really difficult because we needed to produce a new mouse, we needed to make the cells, we needed to phenotype, and then run the efficacy study, as mentioned, manufacturing, toxicology, and then the 2025 was really busy with clinical trial preparation. And of course, bringing any treatment to clinical trial requires regulatory approval. And to do that, we engaged with a regulatory agency really early on. This is our timeline. So we try to engage with regulatory agency via task force meeting really early on, right before starting our efficacy study. And then also during preparation for the tox study and right before submitting our clinical trial operation. Altogether, the clinical trial submission took us around 4 months, which is, I believe, much longer than it is in the US, which takes 30 days. It was very, very busy time because we were, of course, pushing while still waiting for the tox studies. And I remember I was in Florida with Effie when we received our final data for the tox. And I said, we cannot wait for a week. We have to do it now. And I was in my room. I said, well, we'll just go and submit with Mario, who is our CRO. And of course, I was there the whole day trying to prepare and submit. And actually, we were there when the clinical trial was submitted. In our holiday, you know, spending a lot of money for that hotel room. But we were very happy to do it. So basically, the application was submitted on the 14th of July. And the first part was the validation process, which took some time. And then we had 2 parts of evaluation. We received questions on the quality. This was the most difficult part on our product, but also on the non-clinical development and the clinical development. So altogether, our clinical trial was approved on end of November, but it was conditionally approved. We had to do some device compatibility testing, and luckily, with support of ViralGene, we were able to do that quite fast and then submit the amendment. And then our clinical trial was officially authorized in the beginning of December, which was 4th of December. So this is not a mistake. Not sure if every one of you is watching Simon Cowell. This is American on Britain's Got Talent. I thought it was very interesting because my son was dosed on 10th of December. And I thought it was an amazing opportunity to maybe reach out to them and do something big, fundraiser together. So what we have done in the past years was we dosed 2 patients. We have organized 4 conferences, and we have had several presentations at different conferences, also lately at the ACGCT. We have already prepared the FDA documents to expand to the US. We are working with Australia to go through the regulatory process and hopefully have clinical trial expanded there as well. And at the same time, we are working with a Spanish hospital to open a new site in Spain. So what remains as an open milestone in 2026? We have already prepared some important regulatory documents that will help us protect our program, which is the orphan drug designation and the rare pediatric designation. We plan to submit that in the next month, but also to submit to the clinical trial authorities and to get Australia approval to dose 2 more patients in Slovenia, 1 more patient in Spain, and 1 more patient in Brazil, which is right now a path that we will go forward with Fiocruz, which is a non-profit organization linked to Brazilian government. to also get additional funding that will help us expand the program here. So what is our plan for 2027? First of all, we are not done. We aim to open new sites, as mentioned, in Barcelona, in Brazil, in Sydney, and in the US. We are now engaging with several US clinical sites where potentially those clinical trials could happen. And our goal is very ambitious. We do want to treat 16 more children in the next year. And also think about the children who will not be able to be treated in this round, knowing that we do not have enough doses for everyone. We want to find strategic partners to manufacture another batch and potentially to open a new site and expand there. And of course, to open a new conference next year, which would be the fifth conference in Portugal. And now moving to financials. So far, we have been great at fundraising efforts. We have fundraised more than 5 million euros, which I think is really, really incredible. And a lot of that effort really comes back to you families, and to all of us, basically, because we have been the main driver behind this. But also the total investment in the gene therapy program and the natural history studies and the conference we've been doing for the past year have been also very close to 5 million. So looking at the different years, the most expensive part came in the last year, in the last 2 years, where we spent close to 4 million euros. So the further we get, the more expensive it gets. So our real goal for the next year is, we do know that it's really not sustainable for us to keep asking families for us to keep going the fundraising, knowing that we have children that we need to take care of. So we really need to find some strategic partners and to find people who will ultimately support us in this. I also want to acknowledge the main expenses and the main donors. So the main expense, of course, was the GMP manufacturing. This is the most expensive part, but also the toxicology and biodistribution, organizing conferences and managing clinical trial activities. This is only for 2025. And then the main donors, of course, the families, many donations we received via GiveButter or Stripe platform, but there are also 3 organizations that really made significant impact. The Spanish organization, Maze Mission, and then also the Little Miracles for Kids from Australia. Since transparency is something that is very, very important to us, we have prepared a research report. You're very much welcome to use the QR code and check every single euro that went to different activities we use. We'll be also putting this on our website. So during these years of development, being involved in this, we learned that what every pharma drug developer knows, drug development is really complex and is really hard. But we know that having a child with a severe and rare disease is much, much harder. And I know this because I have one at home. And I know what living with urgency, knowing that our children are getting bigger and that time is our worst enemy, really means. And that's why we were really developing this product with urgency, progressing as fast and also safe as possible. And now I think I want to end this presentation with the question that I received most in the past few months: how is Urban doing? As you know, Urban has been the first patient going through this process, and Damjan will be able to explain a bit more about how this selection has been made and more about the safety perspective. I want to give you a bit on safety perspective, but also some of the efficacy that I was able to analyze, which is really preliminary. But I want to give a few notes before I start to give you a bit of perspective. First of all, I'm Urban's mother, and I spent an enormous time working on this product, which means that I'm completely biased. And parental bias is also something that is normal, that probably Bruno have, probably everyone will have, just because this process is so difficult and you have to make sense of the things you see. So you maybe sometimes see more than that there is. And also these are preliminary observations. It's only on first patient. So we also have to be careful about that. There is not a copy of Urban that doesn't receive a treatment that we would be able to see. So we would need a larger number of patients, more objective assessment, and longer follow-ups. And also we learned that with gene therapy, it's not that like our children will get it and they will be completely healthy one day. If it will work, the only normal way to work is to work slow. So the process has to come. If it will come slowly and gradually, because our kids will have to relearn the things they were not able to do. So just briefly, the surgery day and the recovery. So just because we were the first patients, we really want to make sure Urban would not get sick and everything would go planned, because we wanted to get through this process before New Year. Just because there was so much time between the first and the second patient, we really didn't want to lose any time. So we were locked in our house, me and my 2 daughters, for 2 months prior to the treatment. And that was really difficult for my other children as well. And then the surgery day, we went there 1 day before, but also there were a lot of examinations, a lot of blood draws, EEGs, MRIs, and of course we were worried there would be something that would not allow Urban to take place, which would be completely understandable and could happen. For us, this was, of course, very, very difficult and very scary day. You are working so many years to come to this point. And when you come to this point, it's like you're a bit of numb. You have to be very brave to let go of the fear. But also, part of you just is really numb because there is, for me at least, it was no way back. And then the surgery happened, everything went well. The first week happened better than I anticipated. Then we went home, and Urban experienced very severe behavioral effects, which is something that probably the families know because I was trying to update you. This was likely related to steroids, to high doses of steroids, which Urban was for the past 4 months, and this is something Damjan will be able to explain a bit more. But it was very, very difficult process, and it's also something that I want families to know, that going through the clinical trial is a very difficult and very complex and very burdening to families. It's not like you go through it and then you're okay the next day. It takes a long time for families to recover. So looking back, the first few months were extremely difficult, but as one of the first families that has to go through this, we had to be willing to go with this. I opened having everything that could happen, even the worst scenarios on the table. This was the reality. But looking back, I would for sure do it one more time. So now going through what did we observe during the past few months. But before that, I want to give you a bit of a perspective how Urban was before. So Urban was not speaking before. He only repeated a few words, like Chelada, which is a Hamlet, Tata, Mama, Baba, and he would never initiate speech on his own before. But he did have a lot of receptive communication, and he understood a lot more than he could express, which is, I think, very common for our children. And then motorly wise, he was able to progress motorly very well from young age. He was crawling by 9 months. But then the spasticity kicked in and dystonia kicked in, and we noticed in the past years that he was really getting spastic, rigid, I think is the right word to say. He had a surgery to shorten his muscles in 2024, which helped for a few months, but then the spasticity kicked again. And at the end, just before the gene therapy, he was not able to use the left feet. He was not able to stand with support or cruise with furniture. And then attention, he was able to look at book, and when he was motivated, he was able to do that for a longer period. And based on the Bailey-4, he was placed at 24 months at 6 years of age. So one thing we really noticed after the surgery, around 3 months after, was that he started initiate new words on his own. For example, one thing that really surprised me was that he pointed on television and then said televizia, not televizia, but televizia, like something really hard to understand, but I know it was there. And then lately, he also started to name his siblings. For Eva, he said V, and then for Zara, he says Z. He also calls me now Mama, which is really nice to hear. I feel like he's getting better at attention, and he's trying to name the colors, and he also wrote his own name from letters. And motorly wise, the biggest objective thing I think that I can say from all of this was the reduction of spasticity. This is something also I believe Bruno is observing. So the muscle tone has changed, and he was able to put, again, left feet on the ground. He's also stronger in a trunk. For the past 2 months, he also made few independent steps, which he was unable to do that before. And then we haven't seen any improvements in cognition, which is also in line with the psychology team. And those are just a few videos to show you how Urban was moving before. This was when he was younger, of course, far from ever able to walk. And then this was his walking, very rigid, very spastic, right before the muscle surgery, shortening the surgery. And after the surgery, for a short period, he was able to put both feet on the ground. And then, I would say 8 months later, again, the spasticity kicked in, and he was not able to put left feet on the ground anymore.
Bravo.
So, as mentioned, one of the first things we noticed really soon was, again, he was able to put left feet on the ground. That was also happening in the first month. And then the next thing we noticed between 2 and 3 months was he was getting stronger in a trunk, allowing him to walk better. He was also able to move faster and just really cruise with the furniture, which is something he's doing right now very, very well. And he's able to walk just holding my hand. And in the past week, he's also trying to run, holding my hand, when he sees something that he's very excited. And then regarding the behavior, we noticed in Urban's behavior that he was getting worse with age, probably because he had more needs or something we don't know. And as I mentioned, the first 4 months, his behavior was worse than it was before the surgery. And we had to be very open, and still we had to be open because we don't know whether this is steroid, this is gene therapy, or this is something else. But since we started tapering the steroids for the past month, I can finally say that his behavior is getting much, much better. He has more time of calmness. So that is something that is very, very good to know. And one of the big improvements we see is also the sleep. We were really struggling with sleeping. We would be awake for the past 2 or 3 times per week. He wouldn't fall asleep until 2 or 3 a.m. And since April, Urban is sleeping through the night. He sometimes still wakes, he calls my name, and I go to him, and he sleeps immediately. It's just like I feel like I'm not so stressed when I go to sleep. Like I can relax more during the day, knowing that it's just the quality of sleep that has improved. And then the independence. Before he was not toilet trained, he's still not toilet trained. And we don't know whether this is our effort or this is also his own independence. But he's trying to communicate when he does something in a diaper. But also we are trying to use a potty train a bit more now. He's showing efforts to try to dress. And he can color, not just moving the pages. And based on a nanny, I haven't seen this, but he is able to listen to a book for 15 minutes, which is an item in Finland. And now, what did the psychologist observe? He just passed a 6-month objective observation from a trained psychologist who do the Bailey-4, which is an objective assessment to evaluate the motor, gross motor, fine motor, cognition, and expressive and receptive language. Here on the left is a graph that shows a difference before and after. The blue is the before, the red is the after, and here on the right is the change. So as mentioned, in cognition, he hasn't really improved, which is also very aligned with what we see. Receptive communication, I also wouldn't say there was something significant happening there, but also he was really good also before. He's already at the top of the Bailey because it is made for only up to 4 years. Expressive language, he did improve a bit also based on the psychology assessment. And then the main changes we did see is the fine and gross motor. That has changed enormously. He's also able to throw and catch the ball, which was not able to do before. Eating better, so the fine and gross motor are, I think, our biggest improvement. And I was also able to analyze a bit the Bailey in previous years using the age equivalents only. And I think the most important thing is the gross motor observation. For example, Urban now progressed in the past 6 months for 2 months, in the 2 months of Bailey, which is the same that he progressed in the last 5 years. So basically, since 2021, he didn't make any improvements in gross motor, and now he has started to make one. We are also using SIGHT. This is a wearable that some of your children have been using during the natural history study. And right now, the most objective measure we can use from this measure is the number of strides he makes, so those are the walks, and also how many hours he does walk. And he was using this in previous years, and as you can see, he has made an incredible change in the number of walks he made, but also how much time he walks during that time. And one of the important things that also Dr. Nina Žakl will talk about today, we have been reviewing our natural history studies, so how our children are developing over time. And what we noticed in that cohort is that if the patients are not walking by the age of 6, they have 0 to 5% probability to ever walk. And I think this is very interesting because in Urban's case, based on the natural history study, he would not have a chance to walk. And I also know that, holding his hand and just knowing him. But now for the first time, I really do think that if he will progress with that time, he really have a chance to independently walk. So now I would like to end this presentation just with a short video. We will have a lot of videos this week. This video is more about our family and about our personal experience, and then tomorrow it will also be a video of the team effort, which really is behind everything we do. You cannot predict who is going to have a child with a rare disease. They happen spontaneously, and it can happen to anyone. So Urban was born as a completely normal baby boy. He was absolutely beautiful when he was born, and he was my first boy. At the age of 3-4 months, I started to notice that his head control was not there. The pediatrician looked at him with that expression that I will never forget, when she said, "I think it's in the brain." This is the moment that have forever changed our lives. CTNNB1 syndrome was linked to severe intellectual disability, hypotonia, children not being able to speak, to walk, or to ever be independent. And it was linked to sleep problems, autism. They struggle, they have a lot of behavioral problems. We as a family, we sometimes barely survive. So this is, I think, the most difficult part, where I have to fight Sometimes, you know, the researchers and the doctors who think, why are you worried, like, why are you doing this when you have a happy child? It is very, very, very difficult because you have to let go of the dreams that you had, you know, when a healthy child is born. So it's an endless process that hurts you each time. I started seeing successful stories that kind of showed me that there is something we as a parent can do, especially if a disease is so rare that there is no interest in the pharmaceutical companies. And they told me, yes, it is possible, you know, but you need to raise 4 to 5 million euros and you need to work, you know, day and night. If there is like 0.001% of chance, I am willing to do everything I can to really push that forward. So many years, me and the whole team and the family and you know, we worked so hard, and now we are basically 2 days before Urban actually getting the treatment. It feels like, you know, this is not happening to me. It feels like it's happening to someone else. I had to be very, very brave to come to this point. I'm aware that this is the first time that this treatment is going to enter any child in the world. You cannot go into this treatment unless you are aware of everything that can happen. You know, of course, you hope for the best.
Sem dan spal za srečo. Vsi skoraj, mislim, da bo to prineslo srečo. It was a long journey. It was very challenging for all the family and a lot of ups and downs, but finally we get here, so I hope that everything will be okay and that the outcome would be better for my kid.
This is not just a story of one little boy. This has now become a story of all of the 100, 200, and in many years more children that will walk the same path that Urban walks.
When I first started this, I wanted nothing less but a healthy child. I think that being realistic, and if he says a few words, even if it's just, you know, I love you, mom, or, you know, this hurts me, or, you know, some things that you as a parent want to hear, and that his behavioral problems reduce a bit, you know, I could not be happier.
Yeah.